do so well. Over 8 receivers caught a pass, so they were diverse. We know how deep they are at the skill players. And then on the other side of the ball, they had 6 sacks. So I thought that was a really good win against an improving Viking team. And it's amazing what 24 hours does. Saints lose, Tom Brady and Tampa Bay wins. I'm not saying they're going to catch them, but at least now we're still talking about the division being up for grabs.
It's a great point because obviously the Saints have Kansas City coming to town this weekend. You want to use Mike's terms, maybe pencil that in as an L perhaps, or take a look at the fact that the Bucs are in Atlanta on Sunday as well, so there could be another one-game swap right there if things go the way the Bucs hope. Mike, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, bud.
Keyshawn J. Wills have been brought to you by Goodyear. Whether you're on the field or on the edge of your seat, Goodyear wants you to embrace the unexpected. Every upset, touchdown, or fourth quarter comeback, and let it move you no matter what the season throws your way. Goodyear is here to help drive you forward. Goodyear, more driven. So think about it. Saints could lose their second in a row with Mahomes and company coming to town. We'll talk more about his great exploits a little bit later this morning. And again, Bucs in Atlanta, with Atlanta sort of coming back down to earth yesterday. Here is Bruce Arians after yesterday's performance, which was largely aided by a ton of Minnesota miscues, which we'll get into 1 second. Here's Arians on him flexing about his squad.
I think games dictate how much you run it. What's the score at the end of the third quarter? And, we were leading, so it leads to more runs. And Rojo ran really, really well, especially that last drive. And we wanted to set up some play action. Didn't hit it as many as we hoped, but that when asked early this week about our identity, I think we just showed our identity. We can do any damn thing we want to do.
Love the moxie and the bravado there. Rojo, by the way, if you're unfamiliar, the running back Ronald Jones. Key, let me ask you this. They did look good. Brady did spread it around. Wasn't a great statistical performance for Tom, but we should mention Dan Bailey of the Vikings had maybe one of the worst days for a kicker in decades in NFL history. He missed 3 field goals and an extra point. The field goals were 36, 54, and 46 yards. I'm not going to give him that 54-yarder as a quote-unquote chip shot there, right? But 36 and 46, when you need to make it, you start the season 1-5, you're 6-6, you got to have it. The day before this disastrous performance on Saturday, Mike Zimmer gave him a vote of confidence, and if you're a Vikings fan and old enough to remember, Key, the names Gary Anderson, or the Blair Walsh Project, or even a couple of years ago, Daniel Carlson, who missed 3 field goals in a game. They tied the Packers. Zimmer cut him 2 days later. House of horrors for Minnesota and Tampa taking advantage.
Poor Bailey. I'm sure there's going to be a few kickers at the facility today and tomorrow, kicking balls and trying to impress the coaching staff to try to get that job. But when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you gotta factor into what they did, and I understand what Bruce Arians is saying. They can do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it. That's the identity of them. Look, Tom Brady did what he was supposed to do, right? He hit the shots downfield, less than 200 yards throwing, but 2 touchdowns. But at the same time, he hit the guys that were open at times when he needed to, and I think that is how you win football games in this league. It's not all about 400 yards in the air. It's about the 6 sacks on defense. It's about creating havoc on defense, turning the ball over, getting good field position on special teams, and running the ball solid so you can get into the play-action game. That is something that the Pittsburgh Steelers are missing. They're missing being able to get into some rhythm from a play-action standpoint, and I think when you look at it, that is how the recipe is going to be successful for Tampa Bay moving forward. They're not a 5-out, wide-open offense, catch and throw like Tom Brady did in his days in New England. They're more of a run-oriented team, play-action pass, get the balls in the hands of the guys, and play defense.
Hey, man, Scotty Miller got a touchdown the other day. He got a touchdown. I mean, we talked about that last week, Key, about how Tom Brady was targeting Antonio Brown, Mike Evans and company, and getting Scotty Miller involved. But that starts from the run game. I mean, look, the Leonard Fournette story is a completely different one. A late, healthy scratch from the roster, didn't play. But obviously, Ronald Jones rushed for 80 yards, LaShawn McCoy. It didn't make them one-dimensional. So I agree with you, Key. But it still feels like something is off. And I know that the Vikings left 13 points on the board. But it still doesn't feel like the Bucs offense can manage with another high-octane offense, Key. It still doesn't feel like it's clicking the way, when I see the names on a piece of paper, the way you actually want it to click. It seems like it's still slow rolling, and I don't know if I see a difference between this team in week 13 as opposed to what I saw in week 3? It feels like the same team that's still looking for answers, right?
Well,
Or is it just me.
I think that they are trying to find their way and their identity. Much like Coach was saying, I know he's excited after the game. They won the football game. They beat the Vikings. They put the Vikings in the rearview mirror as the Vikings would continue to try to push to get into the playoffs. It's one of those deals. I think if they needed to get into a shootout, I trust that Brady can do it. I trust Mike Evans. I trust Antonio Brown. I trust Miller and Godwin and Gronkowski and Leonard Fournette along with Ronald Jones. I trust that the offense can get into the shootout. They're just going to have to do it the way Brady wants to do it and not the way that they draw it up in the way that they've always done it, whether it was in Indianapolis when he was the interim head coach or whether it was Arizona when he was the head coach for the Cardinals. They have to do it the way Brady wants to do it for Brady to be successful.
And I'll tell you this, Zubin, I mean, they're right there. They play the Falcons twice, and then they play the Lions, while you have the Saints that are playing against the Chiefs, the Vikings, and the Panthers. So it could get it really interesting down the stretch.
Well, I don't think that they're going to win the division by no stretch of the imagination.
Totally agree. The numbers are not on their side. We'll see what happens down the stretch, though. Their schedule does seem to be, as Jay Will indicated, a touch.
Alshon Jeffrey in the red zone, which is why they have him. And they also discovered that Miles Sanders is an explosive player. So it was a really good team win offensively, and their quarterback played really well yesterday.
Mike, the Philadelphia Eagles job, general manager Harry Rosen's just got harder, right? What is going to happen to Carson Wentz in the offseason with $59 million of dead money potentially hanging over the heads of your general manager counterpart?
You know, Key, I see it a little bit differently. I see this as an opportunity because you have to sit there in the offseason and say, hey, do we have two quarterbacks that are winning quarterbacks? Because if we do, somebody else is going to want to acquire one, and hopefully we could get substantial value. If they decide, hey, we want to go with Carson Wentz, they have to pour every resource to get him right, really from the neck up, because we all could agree he lacks confidence. He's not the same guy. If we say, hey, we're going to move forward with Jalen Hurts, it's a huge challenge on the cap. There are ways around it. You would probably have to renegotiate 3 or 4 significant contracts, borrow some money from the future, and then, of course, you would want a massive return for a guy that arguably was in the MVP candidacy 2.5 years ago. So I actually see it as a good thing. The more players that are playing well at the quarterback position is good not only for your team short term, but getting value long term.
Mike, how likely is it that the Eagles actually go back to Carson Wentz at any point this season? Do you see that as something being feasible?
I don't think so, Jay. Well, Jalen Hurts gave him the best chance to win, and it wasn't even close. Some of it you can look to the stats, but other parts of it were just his intangibles. He had complete command of that offense. He made timely plays when he needed to, kept drives alive, had a lot of poise, a lot of confidence. I think it's an easy decision.
I text Jay to tell him to go.
And just when you look at what they're going up against next week in Arizona, yesterday Arizona had 5 sacks. I can't wait to see Jalen Hurts go against that Cardinal defense, and it's a great opportunity for Jalen Hurts to show, hey, I played well against a good Saint defense, and now I have an opportunity to put back-to-back games together.
Mike, so what's going to happen in the NFC East right now? You have, obviously, the Eagles won. The Washington football team got a big one the other day. The Giants lost. Who do you have winning it all?
You know, Jay, well, my predictions are firmly etched in pencil because a week ago, I was sure it was going to be the Giants, and now I'm sure it's going to be Washington. So stay tuned. I'll just have my eraser next week. I'll tell you what, how can you not admire what's going on in Washington? You talk about a team that's been through some adversity, and I think the whole country was holding their breath when they saw Alex Smith go to the sidelines, and he's flexing that leg, and fortunately it sounds like it's just a calf. But give Dwayne Haskins credit, because he went from 1 to 3 when he got benched, if we remember. It was clear to me yesterday that he has made the most of his time on the bench, be it in the meeting room, on the practice field. He played well enough for them to win a really important game against a good defense in San Francisco. So I love stories like that where a younger player just didn't go into the tank. You know, he took a step back. And again, I'm not saying that Dwayne Haskins is their quarterback of the future, but he was able to finish the game. They won. And I think because of that front seven right now and Daniel Jones's inconsistency, I'm putting Washington ahead of the Giants.
Mike, how surprised were you to watch Mitch Trubisky play as well as he played against the Houston Texans? And on top of that, did they go away from him too early?